I'm Adva Southinger, a reporter with DevX Impact, and I'm honored to be here today with Ambassador Melanne Verveer. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So I wanted to start just by asking you sort of broadly where you see us in this effort to both empower women and to include women in the development process.
Well, I think it's an important question because the inclusion part is critical to the empowerment part as well. So they're related to each other. But I think we have made a lot of progress in terms of women's empowerment. It is uneven progress. It is true in one place and not true in other places. In terms of political participation, we don't talk about it enough. Maybe we're not sure what to do about it, but we still have very little progress comparatively in terms of women in decision making, whether that's in terms of elective office and the obstacles women confront, whether they're taken seriously enough in appointive, and the role of women at peace tables and negotiations and looking at that world that we all see today, lots of conflict, lots of political turmoil and transformation, where women critically need to be playing a much more significant role than they are already playing. We continue to need to do a lot of hard work.
What are sort of the most innovative ways that we can look to help women become leaders, especially in countries and in communities where maybe culturally or traditionally they haven't had as much participation?
Well, and I think that's an excellent question because the whole issue of the cultural getting in the way of really unleashing women's voice and women's decision making is a challenge, but it is not a challenge that can't be overcome. You know, when women struggled for family law reform in Morocco, for example, there were those voices that said, oh no, this is not something that can happen here in a predominantly Muslim country. And it was that kind of coming together in grassroots politics, in signing petitions with millions of signatures. So I think the very best thing that we can do is to build the capacity of women, their leadership capacity, enable them to be effective. We all say they need to be at the table, and they do, but we don't do enough to enable them to be as effective as they can be when they get to the table. And this is one of the reasons that when I worked with then First Lady Hillary Clinton on an initiative called the Vital Voices Democracy Initiative back in the Clinton administration, we really focused on women coming out of the Soviet sphere as the Soviet Union collapsed, women in peace processes like in Northern Ireland and other places, realizing that they had to be fully participating, that we desperately needed to have women, and in many places they were well educated, engaged, but they didn't know the first thing about what it takes. And you see this in so many places today, whether in the Arab awakening or in other political transformations, that it's one thing to be involved in the change. It's another thing to create that kind of sustainable governance system and have the leadership capacity to make that contribution. So I would say two things from my experience are absolutely dominating. One is to provide those opportunities for the kind of training, whether it's communication skills, leadership skills, raising confidence and self-esteem in some places is a very big issue because women are often extremely marginalized and feel that marginalization in what they think they can do or cannot do. And then to enable women to come together, both in their countries and across the borders. And I hear women in so many ways say to me, you validated me in the eyes of my own country, but you also enabled me to get to know other women who were doing the same thing, trying to do the same thing, in the same kind of circumstances that I confront. I didn't know how to begin to proceed, or we, as a group of us, didn't know, but working with others who have confronted similar obstacles, have similar cultures, we have been able to make a great deal of progress.